Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fish Tank. I'm BaddestFish80 and today I'm coming to you as always from a hot and sticky London. Now, what have we got in store today? It's Minion Masters patch news. We're going to look at the update details for 1.38 and this is going to be a good one. Now, let's dive in. Okay, so remember, we are in the Kaboom Kingdom expansion. This is a 3-month expansion. This is the second month of it. So what are we going to see for version 1.38? Okay, well, this is going to drop Thursday, the 4th of August. If you're watching this live on the YouTube premiere, that's going to be tomorrow. What are we going to have? We're going to have some new cards. We're going to see a new skin. There's a new AFK Bot. More about that. And as always, balance changes and bug fixes. So we got a lot to cover. Let's jump in and find out. The first thing we're going to look at are the new cards. Now, as always, there's going to be 2 new cards. Now, remember, these new cards are available in both season passes. So you can get them in the free season pass, or you can get them quickly in the paid premium Ruby season pass. So whichever way you address the game, season pass wise, you can get access to these cards. Right, the first card we have is Feng. Feng the Wanderer. So obviously we can see this is a monkey. Okay, so Feng the Wanderer. This is a 5 mana legendary Zenshi minion. The stats are the same as a Battle Shihao. So we got 420 HP, we've got 75 damage, 41 DPS. Now, instead of having the mechanic like the Battle Shihao where it attacks more quickly, this chap has a very special mechanic. So when played, gain a positive effect for each card of a different faction in your hand. So you can buff this guy, and you can buff this guy in different ways depending on what you have in your hand. So let's have a look here. We've got the buffs here. So Accursed gives him a Spirit, Crystal Elf, Mana Surge, Empyrean, Taunt, Outlander gives him a Nat, Escort, Puff is a shield, Scrat, 2 Scrats to support, Slither is 3 seconds of poison on attack, Stout Heart is thick hide, Voidborn is rage, and Zenshi is giant growth. So you can buff this guy as you wish based on what you want in what you have in your deck. Now, of course, you want to have as many different, ideally, buffs to get the most value out of it. It'd be interesting to see when people get their hands on Feng, see how they think the best buffs for him are. Okay, so, and this is what Feng looks like in the game. Okay, so fairly monkeyish, but we can see clearly different from the other monkeys. So we'll see how Feng fits in to monkey decks, some Zenshi decks, and we'll see also how he fits into other decks with lots of different sorts of factions represented. Okay, so that's the first new card. And the second new card is Rampant Growth. So we can see the card artwork here. We can see the Growth Burst Shrooms. Gives us an idea of what this card is going to revolve around. But let's find out a little bit more about it. So Rampant Growth, this is a 3 mana Zenshi spell. So when you draw it, that's when it enters your hand, it plants a Growth Burst Shroom. Now, what you can do, you can use this spell to target one of your minions, and what it causes to happen is all of your Growth Burst Shrooms will move towards that target. It will heal the target, and it will stun the enemies. Now, the healing is 50 health per Growth Burst Shroom. So the more shrooms you have out when you use this spell, the more healing it can apply. Now, also, you'll notice healing is doubled on units with giant growth. So that'll be 100 healing per Growth Burst Shroom. So remember, these shrooms are going to go towards your target, they will heal it, and they will stun stuff around it. The stun, of course, is a regular stun for 2 seconds, but each of these Growth Burst Shrooms on arrival will stun. There's 0.2 seconds between their arrivals, so if you have 4 of them, for example, that will give you a 2.6 second stun overall, plus a 200 or Growth Burst Shroom, giant growth buffed 400. So 200 regular heal, 400 if you've got 4 of them. Okay, and of course, let's just remind ourselves what the giant growth ears from the Growth Burst Shroom. The Growth Burst Shroom gives giant growth, 30% attack, 30% extra health. So we'll likely see this in decks revolving not only around Zenshi minions, but revolving around minions that can benefit from the giant growth. So that'll be really interesting to see how that works. So Zenshi minions, of course, can pick up the giant growth. They can get buffed by this, healed by this, stunned by this. This is going to be great to see. Okay, so we've got a couple of new cards. Both of those are Zenshi related, so we'll see how they fit into the decks that we're going to see out in the wild. So, of course, as normal, and we didn't see this in the last patch because, of course, the last patch had all the new arenas and we got the new Showdown arena, but we're back to a new skin in the Battle Pass. This is going to be a Volko skin. Purple Power Mech Suit Volko. So it's a recolor skin, but it's a decent looking one. I'm happy with that. Okay, next up, we have a very exciting new feature. I'm calling this the AFK Bot. Now, a lot of people complain about people leaving games, about people not playing games when you're playing in pre-mades or random specifically. If you're pre-made teammates leaving, then you might want to find a new teammate. But specifically in randoms, a lot of people troll, a lot of people leave, a lot of people do all sorts of nonsense that really does qualify as griefing. So there is a plan in place to address that, and this is stage 1 of the plan. So a player will be replaced by a bot if they are AFK until they return. So if your teammate stops playing for whatever reason, whether they are legitimately AFK or just griefing, they will be replaced by a bot. But what does AFK mean? Well, AFK, away from keyboard, is going to be detected as 3 consecutive manas being burnt. Now that is going to be 10 in Mana Frenzy, 3 in regular gameplay. So 3 consecutive manas being burnt, they will be identified as being AFK, and the bot will take over playing. What will happen on their screen, and we'll see this in just a moment, is they'll get a pop-up on their screen that tells them what's happening and gives them a button they can press when they return. So this is only part 1 of it, because it's only going to address players that are AFK within the game, not players that have left the game or disconnected. So as we'll see, the next stage of this in a future patch is the plan is to implement this for people that disconnect or quit, so for whatever reason. So the first stage, which is going to be in this patch, is players going AFK during the match, and this is what you'll see if you're the player that goes AFK. So the player that goes AFK will get this pop-up. No one else will see any sort of indication of anything going on. Now this is, interestingly, this is in all modes. 1v1, 2v2 randoms, 2v2 pre-mates. This is going to be in all of them. So it'll be interesting to see if this can help improve the situation. Because I do see a lot of people complaining about people leaving, about people griefing on Steam, forums, on Reddit and in the game, which is frustrating. So hopefully this can counter that a little bit. Of course, a bot playing is probably not going to be as good as a proper teammate, but it's going to be a darn sight better than just your teammates sitting there just burning mana after mana. Okay, so that's a new feature. Exciting to look forward to that. Now, of course, as we always have, we're going to see some balance changes. Now, as always, we're going to go through the balances. We're going to look at the buffs and the nerfs, and in between the rebalances where things change in multiple ways or just be changed completely. So first of all, let's look at the buffs. Volko. Now Volko, since they removed Burn the Bridges and changed it to Burn the Bridge, Volko really was struggling a bit. This is a buff to Volko. Burn the Bridge, which is his perk 1. If there's only 1 unit on the bridge, it will do double damage. So normally it does 200 damage over 5 seconds. If there's only 1 target on the bridge, it will do double that, 400 damage. So that's an interesting change. And the way this works is the way the damage is applied is there's a small tick of damage every 0.2 seconds. And every time that happens, the game will check how many targets are on the bridge at that time. So even if there's one unit at the start and then a bunch come onto it, the damage will be applied appropriately whether there's one unit or multiple units, even if they change during the 5 seconds that is in action. So interesting to see how this is. This is probably where the burn the bridges being changed to burn the bridge was it was a nerf specifically directed towards 2v2. You could argue that this is potentially a buff directed mainly towards 1v1. 2v2 you're likely to have a lot more units on a bridge. So a bit of love for Volko, that's good to see. Now there's a small buff coming up for the Bazooka Scrat. Remember, in a recent patch they removed the interaction between the Bazooka Scrat and the marked mechanic, so it won't attack buildings. Sorry, it won't attack units that are marked. Now, the offshoot of that is they've given it some buffs. It's getting a buff damage 225 to 250, small damage increase. It can now single shot a full HP Ghost Turret and Swarmer Totem, whereas previously it couldn't. So we'll see how that works out. Remember, it does reduce damage, half damage to Master Towers. Next up, we have a buff for Grasping Thorns. So this is a defensive spell, of course. So the damage that it does is going to go up from 200 to 222, and the duration is going to go up, 200 to 220. Reading's hard. And a duration going up from 8 seconds to 10 seconds. So a nice little buff there for Grasping Thorns. Interesting change here for Mardred. Mardred is getting an attack speed increase from 2 seconds to 1.8 seconds. I played Mardred a little bit recently, kind of because I got him in as a conquest card, and then it kind of worked out quite well, so I just played around with the deck a bit. Pretty strong. So his DPS is going to go up from 80 to around about 89. So a nice buff for Mardred. And of course Mardred has that special mechanic where when it attacks a minion with 40% or less HP, it will destroy it and fear everything else around it. So there's a buff for Mardred. Next we have a buff for Rimagal. Rimagal, Scourge of the Summit, of course the big blue dragon, the most recent dragon added to the game. So Rhymefire is now going to be true damage. And as you'll see from the patch notes when the devs release it, in hindsight, this seems like a kind of an obvious change, because the Rhymefire freezes the targets, and of course once the target's frozen, then they take less damage. But now Rimagal's going to do true damage, so even on frozen targets, it will be able to do its maximum damage. So that's a nice buff there for Rimagal. Now we have a buff for the Sewer Scrat. Remember, the Sewer Scrat applies poison on attack or when it is hit. Now the poison is going to go up from 2 seconds to 2.5 seconds. Poison is 20 damage per second, so that means that the poison is being applied is going up from 40 to 50 poison damage. Here we have a buff for the Shroom Puff. You could argue this is a buff or a bug fix. Doesn't really matter, the end result's the same. There was some times when the Shroom Puff got to the bridge and popped out a shroom that it would be in a location that was awkward for your units to pick up. So the location where it will spawn, I think it shouldn't spawn near the top or the bottom of the bridge. It should be more in the middle, so it should be more of a balanced way to grab it. Next up we have Spiritmancer. So the Spiritmancer is going to get a mana cost reduction from 5 to 4. And of course, every time we see a minion on 4 mana, APEP comes to mind. So that means that Spiritmancer is now going to be available as a card from APEP's perk 3. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Depends really what you're playing against. Depends how RNG is going to treat you. Now we have another change here to Sunburn. Sunburn's a card that's seeing a lot of changes recently. Now, the most recent change in this patch is the damage is going up from 100 to 130. So we've seen recently it was at 80, then it went up to 100, now it's up to 130, and of course it no longer damages friendly units, so it can be very strong. And of course, whenever we look at units doing more damage or spells doing more damage, we look at, does that mean that they can kill things that they couldn't previous? And yes, the Sunburn can. So when it's doing 130 damage, it can now kill a Wizard Puff, Stun Lancers, Fire Imp, and War Dancers. So nice buff there for Sunburn. Can kill more things. That's good. And speaking of War Dancers, here's a little buff for the War Dancers. Their health going up from 120 to 130. So just a small buff there. Just try to make them trade a little better and be a little bit more valuable. Okay, so those are the buffs. Next up are the rebalances. So a reminder, rebalances are where things are changing in multiple ways or changing completely. The first up we have is the aimbot. Now, the aimbot is changing. So the aimbot, remember, you can consume tech to get marksmanship and then previously consume more tech to get haste. So what the change is that the cost of the tech is only going to be 30, down from 40. Remember, tech is the currency, almost the resource that you build up during a game from drawing Outlander cards. So the tech cost per upgrade is down to 30. The second upgrade is being changed. Instead of haste, you're going to get 2 nats with it, the nats having marksmanship. So there's a bit of a rebalance there to the aimbot. Next up is Chief Icebreaker Bolf. Now, some changes here that I like. Bolf was kind of a bit awkward to use. Nobody really played him, but here, let's have a look at some changes. So, attack speed is going down, which means he attacks more quickly. It's kind of the attack delay. Damage is going down from 100 to 90. So the faster attack speed, the lower damage. The DPS is about the same, but the big change is every third attack freezes the target. And of course, now, like with Rimagal, Bolf already had true damage. So the freeze is great. The true damage is also perfect for the freeze because he's going to be able to do his full DPS through it. So will we see more Bolf? I hope so. Now, here's a rebalance to the Priestess. The Priestess gains attack. Now, if you've played the game for a while, you'll know that the Priestess used to have an attack. She could attack and heal. Then they removed the attack, so she could only heal. Now she has an attack, but she can attack or heal. So basically what happens is, if there's any injured friendly minions around her, she will heal and heal only. If there are no friendly damaged minions around her, she will then attack. So she prioritizes healing, and if there's no healing to do, she will have an attack. And her attack is like Ardera's Channeled Beam, but much, much weaker. So she has a small attack, could be useful, but you won't be able to do what you used to do, where say you had a Colossus and you'd support it with a Priestess. The Priestess would be healing the Colossus as well as killing the Scrat Horde, or the prop Scrats. She won't be able to do things like that now because she'll either be healing or attacking, not both of them. But we'll see. And one thing to note is when she's attacking, like all ranged units, she will stop and attack. Whereas, as we know, when she's healing, she just carries on walking. So this could potentially help her, potentially to stay more behind the units that she's trying to heal, stay out of harm's way. Let's see how that works out. Okay, here we have a rebalance for Rimagal's Breath. This is a rebalance because it's kind of a buff and a nerf, so 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So as with Rimagal, the Rime Fire is now true damage. Remember, true damage ignores all protection, so goes through shields, goes through frozen, everything like that. So that's a buff on that side of things. The damage, though, is being reduced from 200 to 180. So there are things that it won't kill anymore, like a Succubus, for example. So we'll see how that works out. Okay, so those are the rebalances. Now, let's have a look at the nerfs. The first nerf we're having is to Morelia. Now, Morelia kind of keeps getting nerfed over and over again, just little chips away. So what they're doing now is, currently, everything in her spellbook costs 0, apart from the spirits, I think. I don't know, I'm confused. But basically what they're changing is the spellbook's going to cost 1, but the pages themselves are going to cost 0. One of the offshoots of that is, currently there's a situation where the spellbook's 0, so you can open the spellbook, but you haven't quite got that mana, so you're kind of awkwardly sitting there with your spellbook open. Of course, when Morelia has her spellbook open, she doesn't attack, so that situation won't happen anymore because you'll be having to pay that 1 mana for the spellbook to open it, and then it's everything. It's going to be costing 0. So a little change, but overall a nerf there for Morelia. Now a nerf here to Ratbo. So his perk 2, more Daka, you know, his big attack that does damage based on friendly minions. Those friendly minions are going to be changed to only be Ratbo's minions. So this is a change that's only going to affect duos. So your teammate units won't count as Ratbo's minions. Now, I know you're going to say, what happens about those minions that Ratbo spawns when your teammate uses a card, a minion card? Those still belong to Ratbo, so they will still count. So it does 40 damage per minion, but it's only going to be Ratbo's minions. So that's going to be a nerf to the Daka and only in duos. Now here we see a nerf to Blood Pact. So this is Blood Pact overall. Blood Pact, of course, is when a unit with Blood Pact takes damage, then part of that damage is passed on to your master. Currently it's 75%, it's going up to 85%. So that's going to be affecting Blood Imps, Brutish Betrayer, and units that come from the Gorex Gate. Now this is primarily a nerf for Blood Imps, because Blood Imps are very strong, especially at the high levels of the game. You'll see a lot of leaderboard decks, especially in solos, using these. So this is kind of primarily directed to nerf the Blood Imps, but the other cards did need a little bit of adjustment as well. So just as an example, if somebody fireballs all 5 of your Blood Imps, previously you'd take 675 damage, whereas now with the nerf you will take 765 damage. So there's a bigger negative to playing units with Blood Pact. Next up we have Dragon's Nest, another card that's seen a lot of changes recently. So production time's going to go down. Remember, Dragon's Nest is now a spawner building. It spits out the flightless dragons, and if you use a spell you get an extra flightless dragon. So production time is going down from 5 seconds to 5.8 seconds. The building lasts for 30 seconds. So a couple of things, you're going to get 5 spawns instead of 6, and crucially, Call to Arms. Remember, Call to Arms will heal a building. Call to Arms no longer adds an additional spawn when it's played on a Dragon's Nest. Right, next up we have a small change to Gorek Brutes. So remember, Gorek Brutes recently changed where you get a rammer and an illusory cleaver, or a cleaver and an illusory rammer. The change is that it's going to start on the rammer side. Now arguably the rammer side is the least valuable side, so this is specifically designed against very strong, very heavy aggro, early aggro decks where they just want to get the cleaver out to start with and then go. So this should be a little change, a little nerf for those kind of decks. Now here we have a big nerf, Mountain Shaper. Mountain Shaper's everywhere. I play it a lot in duos. I find it's just necessary against just some of the just huge push decks, especially in Mana Frenzy. This can be incredibly useful. Now remember, the way Mountain Shaper works is it takes time to build up the charges, up to a maximum of 5 charges. Now the previous patch changed it from 4 to 5 seconds per charge. This is nerfing it again from 5 to 7 seconds per charge. So that's another extra 10 seconds for the full charge. So it seems like the previous nerf didn't do anywhere near enough, so this is being added to that. So again, we're going to have the situation where you're either going to have to wait longer to get the full Mountain Shaper value, or you're going to have to use it before it gets fully charged. Next up we have a nerf that a lot of people will be looking forward to, the Sapphire Pebble. We did see some changes in the recent patch where it had its duration reduced. Now its range is being reduced. Thank goodness. Right, range is down from 12 to 10. So that should mean it can't cover quite as much as it could before. You can't place it on the bridge and defend face. You're going to have to be a little bit smarter about where you place it. So let's see how that... And one thing to note is the Bazooka Scrat now outranges it. I've closed my door and my window so there's no sounds, and it's incredibly hot here in London. I feel like I'm melting, but let's try and get through this. Now, this is another one that you could argue, is it a bug fix or is it a nerf? The answer is yes. So, Scrapyard. Tech abilities are no longer activated. So Scrapyard's been everywhere. And one of the reasons it was so strong is units that came out of it that had a tech activated ability would automatically be activated at no cost. So that could be a bug, could just be how it worked. So things like the aimbot, the stint and the wrecked walker, you won't get the extra benefit that you previously did. It doesn't matter if you've got the tech available or not. No tech abilities activated from the units. So that should be a decent buff, a decent nerf to the Scrapyard. So we'll see how that works out. A lot of people playing Scrapyard. It's very, very strong. I know the devs, before they wanted to nerf it, they wanted to make this change so it was working as intended, and then any future balance will be applied as appropriate. Now, another card that we see everywhere, solos, duos, Shield Captain Avea. She has recently received some changes. In this patch, her health's going to be reduced to 450 from 500 and the damage down from 90 to 70. So she's going to be less valuable on her own. She's going to have less health, so it's going to be more difficult to activate her quest. We'll see how that works out. I know some of the other discussions with regards to Avea have been, is the quest regarding the reward you get not appropriately balanced? The quest is fairly easy to do. You just got to shield the minions 4 times, and then you get a huge benefit of 4 legionnaires. So you can get that activated. I managed to get Avea activated in 1 spawn earlier this week. That was kind of insane. Normally you aim to get her activated in 2 spawns. So one of the suggestions was maybe the reward, the 4 legionnaires you get, is too valuable, so that could potentially be changed in the future, but we'll see how this nerf affects Avea. Still expect her to be strong, but not quite as strong. Next up we have the Zealots. Zealots, again, something we see everywhere. Now they're having a substantial damage reduction from 90 to 70. And remember, you get 2 of them. So in certain cases, that's a double nerf, because that's a lot less damage they're going to be doing overall. So if we have a look, as we mentioned before, what can they kill, what can't they kill? Well, a single Zealot can no longer single shot Jade Flingers, Chisma Boomstick, Bounceberry Flingers, or a Stint. But also, as mentioned, when you spawn them together, you're effectively getting double the damage, and that's where the nerf is going to be felt doubly. So what you used to do is just play them both on something, they'd both attack it and destroy something in effectively one hit, whereas now there's going to be a lot of things they can't do that to. So their combined double attack will no longer single shot a Veil Stalker, Laylail, Boom Buggy, Blastmancer, Spiritmancer, Annihilator, Lady in Fray, Assassin, Malshar, Priestess, Drone Walker, Legionnaires, Aimbot, Wrecked Walker. That's a lot of things that they can no longer insta-kill with their both hitting it. So that's a lot of things where they're going to be trading far less effectively. So I think overall that's quite a substantial nerf. Right, buffs, rebalances and nerfs have been addressed. We have quite a long list of bug fixes to go through. Always good to see. Let's zip through those. Okay, so fixed an issue where Xbox would occasionally fail to save any data, including settings and adventure progress. Now, we mentioned the Scrapyard change. Was it a nerf? Was it a bug? Well, it's in the list of bug fixes, so if you've been playing it, you've been bug abusing. Right, so Scrapyard. Fix Scrapyard spawning units with their tech abilities activated without consuming the appropriate tech. Scrapyard will no longer spawn units with tech abilities activated. Fixed an issue with Spectator Pus behaving weirdly in the streamer arena when both sides of a match have streamers. Fixed Burn the Bridges animation. So remember, Burn the Bridges, this should actually say Burn the Bridge because it only burns one of them. They changed it to only burn one of them, but the animation kind of looked like it was still burning 2 of them, like the route to the bridge, so it was kind of confusing to see what was happening. They fixed that now, so it's only going to go correctly to the bridge that you choose to burn. Next up, we have fixed a stun related issue calling Zip's Zappinator to reset the power-up stacks. Fixed an issue where illusory units would revive from the tombstone as the normal version, and the fix is illusions no longer respawn with the tombstone. Interesting. Fix the issue where Brutus and Terror Brutus would become untargetable after having been the target of the Wizard Puff's on death effect. That was annoying. I didn't experience it, and it sounded like it was going to be a really niche situation, but judging by the number of people that mentioned it and have experienced it, that was something that was happening quite a lot, so nice bug fix there. Tweaked bridge control indicator lights on the Sunken Temple to more accurately reflect the actual control area. Reduced number of particles and lights in Magma Court to make performance better at higher graphics settings. I definitely noticed of all the arenas, Magma Court probably had the worst of the performance, so nice to see an increase there. Adjusted the way colours are affected by post-processing for Tranquil Estate. I'll look forward to seeing what that looks like. I haven't seen it myself, but I know a lot of people complain about how it looks too washed out, so we'll see how that actually pans out. Added production speed to Dragon's Nest, so that's just, it was missing from the card. It's now been added to the card. Fixed Valorian Adventure Masters Perk 1 card buff indicators. So we got some changes, some fixes here to adventure related stuff. Fixed an issue where claiming victory chests in old adventures would appear on an incorrect pedestal. Fixed an issue where the retire button would disappear during a continued adventure run. Fixed the wrong arenas being used after a lost adventure run. Fixed a flow issue that allowed players to re-roll selections for the double up campfire option. Adjusted the spawn position of the crystal archers spawned by the And My Bow relic. Fixed damage calculation for Cage Prowler. So this is not an adventure specific bug fix. Fix the damage calculation for Cage Prowler such that it will now spawn when it's supposed to. So it should require 117 damage to stop it from spawning. We did some tests, Show Me the Money and myself. We did a number of tests trying to figure out what that sweet spot of how much damage it took, and it didn't quite work out. So we reported that back, and that's now been appropriately fixed. And here's another one that Show Me the Money will be interested to see. Fixed a broken interaction between the Sugarlight Shield and Jinlong and Xiaolong's phase shift ability. So basically what happened with that is if you had a ranged unit attacking Jinlong or Xiaolong and then you use the Sugarlight Shield, the dragon would disappear. I guess now only the Jinlong, but it depends. Your opponent could trigger the Xiaolong as well. The dragon would disappear, but the ranged units would still be locked on attacking it, which they shouldn't do. The unit disappears, they should target something else. So that should be fixed now. Right, extended total permitted load time in an effort to further reduce the chance of timeouts happening when loading into matches. So that's just the system giving you more time to get into your game. So if you're playing on a lower end system, this will hopefully help you get a better experience. Okay, so that's the bug fixes. And that's the patch. So, reminder, version 1.38 drops Thursday the 4th of August 2022. We've got those two new cards. We've got the Rampant Growth and Feng, the Wanderer. We've got the new Volko skin. We've got the new AFK Bot to play for your teammate if they start burning mana. 3 manas burnt in a row. Of course, as we've seen, we've got a load of balance changes and a ton of bug fixes. So, that is a lot to look forward to. And I'm looking forward to playing tomorrow once the patch is released. Hopefully you guys are too. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about the changes? What do you think about the new cards? What do you think about the new AFK bot? Very exciting to see that. And of course, not only give your feedback based on what you've seen, once you get into the game tomorrow, let us know, come back, let us know what you think about the changes once you've seen them in action. Okay, I need to go and cool off somewhere because, as mentioned, it is very hot today. Very hot, very humid here in London, but I'm excited to check out this tomorrow. If you've enjoyed the content here on the Fish Tank, please, I would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment if you've got any questions, anything like that. Always here to help. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys again soon here in the Fish Tank, and of course on Twitch tomorrow for the second of the Kaboom Kingdom season. This is Bad as Fish 80, signing out. is an awkward wave.